I used to work the night shift at a small local factory. Only 3 of us handled the overnight packing. Me, Senna, and an older guy named Jived. Every night, the machines hummed steadily until one shift when everything suddenly stopped. We thought it was a power issue until we realized the lights were still on. Senna checked the control panel. I went to the back storage room, and Javed stayed near the machines. A minute later, we heard Javed screaming. When we ran to him, he was staring at the far end of the hall, shaking. He said something had walked between the machines, but the security cameras caught nothing. The next night, Javed didn't show up. His locker was emptied out. He never came back. And now, whenever the machines stop mid-shift, Sana and I don't check the back room anymore. We just wait and listen until they start again. Have you ever worked the night shift? That quiet, eerie time when the world outside sleeps, but inside, things are just starting to wake up. I used to love it. The peace, the solitude, until my last shift, that is. My name is Alex N. I was a security guard at an old, forgotten textile mill on the edge of town. The place had been closed for decades, just a skeleton of rusted machinery and dust-caked floors. My job was simple: walk the perimeter, check the locks, and make sure no one broke in. For months, it was the easiest money I'd ever made. The only company I had was the hum of the old fluorescent lights and the scuttling of unseen creatures in the walls. But that all changed one Tuesday night. It started subtly. A door I knew I had locked was suddenly ajar, a cold draft in a windowless corridor. I brushed it off, as my mind playing tricks on me in the dead of night. Then came the noises. At first, it was a faint whisper, like the sigh of the wind, but there was no wind inside the mill. It grew louder each night, twisting into what sounded like a woman humming a lullaby. It was a sweet, sad tune that seemed to come from everywhere at once. I would stop in my tracks, my heart pounding against my ribs, trying to pinpoint the source. But the moment I moved, it would vanish, leaving me in suffocating silence. By the third night, Primera y ese on edge. I started talking to myself, just to break the oppressive quiet. As I was doing my rounds in the main weaving room, a vast space filled with skeletal looms, I saw it, a flicker of movement at the far end of the hall. I froze, my flashlight beam cutting a shaky path through the darkness. Nothing. Just rows of silent machines, draped in shadows that looked like sleeping giants. I told myself it was a rat, or maybe a trick of the light, but a deep, primal fear began to coil in my stomach. The humming started again, closer this time, and I could almost make out words, though they were in a language I didn't understand. The fourth night was when things escalated. The humming was constant now, a maddening loop that drilled into my skull. I was in the supervisor's office on the second floor when I heard a loud crash from the main floor below. It sounded like one of the heavy looms had been toppled over. Adrenaline surged through me. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight and cautiously made my way downstairs, my boots echoing in the cavernous space. The weaving room was still, but the air was thick, heavy with an unnatural chill. As my light swept across the room, it landed on one of the looms. It was rocking back and forth, slowly, rhythmically, as if someone were working it. But there was no one there. On my fifth and final night, I almost didn't go in. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, the engine off, staring at the dark, hulking silhouette of the mill, but I needed the money. So I took a deep breath and went inside. The silence was the worst part. No humming, no whispers, nothing. It felt like the calm before a storm. I did my first round as quickly as possible, my senses on high alert. As I was heading back to the security office, I passed a wall of old, cracked mirrors that the workers used to use. I glanced at my reflection, and my heart stopped. Standing right behind me in the mirror was a woman. She was pale with long, dark hair plastered to her face, wearing a tattered worker's dress. Her eyes were just dark, empty sockets. But the most terrifying part, when I spun around, there was nothing there. Just an empty hallway. I didn't even grab my stuff. I ran out of that mill and never looked back. Some places hold on to their stories. And some stories, they never want to let you go. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to follow 4 more Tales from the Dark. At my old call center job, the building had a reputation. The manager who worked before us had died of a heart attack inside his office during a night shift. We tried not to think about it, but the office door kept opening. Our crew of 3, me, Ali, and Heinewood shut it, only to see it slowly swing open behind us an hour later. One night, Ali got annoyed and shouted, "Enough! Stay closed! Stay closed!" The door slammed shut so hard the glass cracked. We thought someone was inside, so we pushed it open. The room was empty, but the chair was spinning slowly, like someone had just stood up from it. From then on, we never complained about the door again. We just let it open. Ever felt like your office was watching you? I don't mean the security cameras or your boss. I mean the office itself. That's what happened to me. It started the day I got promoted to junior manager. The corner office was my reward, complete with a floor-to-ceiling window and a heavy, antique desk. My predecessor, Mr. Abernathy, had retired abruptly. People whispered about a breakdown, but no one knew the details. The first day was normal. I spent hours organizing files, personalizing the space. But as the sun went down, casting long, dancing shadows across the room, a strange feeling crept in. A cold spot seemed to form right behind my chair. No matter how high I turned up the heat, I dismissed it as old building drafts. The second day, things got weirder. I'd leave a pen on the right side of my desk and find it on the left. My computer mouse would be unplugged. I blamed my own forgetfulness, the stress of the new role. Then came the whispers, faint, like a radio playing in another room. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was mocking, filled with a dry, rustling laugh. I'd checked the hallway, but it was always empty. The cleaning crew didn't come up until after 10. I was alone. I started telling myself I was just tired, working too late, but the feeling of being watched intensified. My reflection in the dark window wasn't always alone. Sometimes, for a split second, a tall, gaunt figure would stand behind me, its face a blur of shadow. I tried to talk to my colleagues about it. I casually asked about Mr. Abernathy. "Oh, old Abe," one of them said. "He loved that office. Practically lived in it." Said it spoke to him, Tay Chukled. But there was an uneasy glint in their eyes. They knew something. The whispers grew louder, clearer. "Get out," they'd hiss. "My office." The cold spot became a constant companion, a presence at my back. One evening, while working on a quarterly report, the main lights in my office flickered and died, leaving me in the glow of my monitor. The door, which I always kept ajar, slammed shut with a deafening bang. The lock clicked. Panic seized me. I rattled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The whisper was right in my ear now, a cold, dead breath against my skin. "You're not welcome here." The temperature dropped so much I could see my own breath. On my computer monitor, the report I was writing was deleted. In its place, one word typed itself out, over and over again. "Leave! Leave! Leave!" I screamed, pounding on the door. The reflection in the monitor showed the figure again, no longer just a shadow. It was a man in an old-fashioned suit, his face pale and sunken, his eyes burning with cold fire. It was Mr. Abernathy. But not the smiling picture from the company archives. This was something else. Something twisted by obsession. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. The door creaked open. The hallway was brightly lit and empty. The word on my screen was gone. My report back to normal. I grabbed my bag and ran. I didn't stop running until I was in my car, speeding away from the building. The next morning, I went to HR and resigned. I didn't give a reason. How could I? How could I explain that the office itself, or the ghost of its previous occupant, had driven me out? They offered me a different position, a different office. Primera, refused. I knew I could never set foot in that building again. Sometimes I drive past at night. The light in my old office is always on, and sometimes I think I can see a silhouette standing by the window, watching the street below, watching for the next person to make the mistake of stepping into the manager's office. It's a space that doesn't like change. It holds on to its occupants, even after they're gone, and it will do whatever it takes to get rid of anyone new. So if you ever get that big promotion, that corner office you've always dreamed of, just be careful. Make sure you know who or what you're sharing it with. Thanks for listening to my story. Stay safe out there, and maybe think twice before working late alone. Make sure to follow for more chilling tales. I worked at a hospital as part of the night logistics team. It was just me, a guy named Farouk, and a new coworker. Our job was simple: move supply boxers to the basement storage, but no one liked that basement. It was too quiet, too cold, and the lights buzzed like they were struggling to stay alive. One night, Arif said he heard whispering down there. We laughed, thinking he was just scared. Then Farouk and I heard it too. It wasn't one voice, it was several. They whispered our names. We dropped the boxers and ran upstairs. Security checked the basement and found nothing wrong. But when we replayed the CCTV footage, the whispers were recorded clearly. And Banende Uese, in the corner of the frame, stood 3 shadowy figures same height, same shape. But none of them had faces. It was just another Tuesday night, another shift delivering lukewarm pad thai and greasy pizzas to the sprawling suburbs. I was scrolling through my phone, waiting for the next ping, when an unusual order popped up. The address was way out on Old Mill Road, a place most drivers avoided after dark. The order itself was weird, to just a single plain cheeseburger, no fries, no drink, and a note: please deliver to the basement door around back. Do not knock on the front door. The tip is generous. Generous was an understatement. The app showed a $50 tip for a $10 burger. My rent was due, and that $50 was the difference between scraping by and having a little breathing room. Against my better judgment, I accepted the order. The drive out to Old Mill Road was unnerving. Streetlights became sparse, then disappeared altogether, leaving my headlights to cut through the oppressive darkness. The houses grew farther apart, replaced by dense woods that seemed to lean in over the road. My GPS finally announced, "You have arrived." But all I saw was a long, unpaved driveway disappearing into a thicket of trees. A rusted, wrought-iron gate, half swallowed by ivy, stood slightly ajar. I took a deep breath and turned onto the gravel path. The car bounced and jostled, the sound of crunching stones loud in the sudden silence. At the end of the driveway stood a house that looked like it had been pulled from a black-and-white horror film. It was a large, 2-story Victorian, with peeling paint, boarded-up windows on the upper floor, and a sagging porch. The only light came from a single, bare bulb glowing yellow above what I assumed was the front door. Remembering the instructions, I grabbed the delivery bag and circled the house. The air grew colder, and a damp, earthy smell filled my nostrils. The back of the house was even more dilapidated. An old, weather-beaten wooden door, set low into the stone foundation, was clearly the basement entrance. There was no light here, just the faint glow from my phone screen. As I approached, I saw a small, wooden crate sitting next to the door. On top of it was a crisp $50 bill held down by a smooth, gray stone. I hesitated. This was too easy, too strange. Part of me screamed to grab the money, leave the food, and get out of there. But another, more foolish part, the part that had gotten me into this mess, felt a professional obligation to complete the delivery as instructed. I placed the bag with the cheeseburger on the crate, pocketed the 50, and turned to leave. That's when I heard it. A soft scratching sound from inside the basement. It wasn't a rat or a raccoon. It was methodical, rhythmic. Scratch, pause, scratch, pause. It sounded like fingernails dragging slowly down a wooden surface. My heart hammered against my ribs. I should have run. I know I should have. But instead, I leaned closer to the door, pressing my ear against the splintered wood. The scratching stopped. A new sound began. A faint, raspy whisper. It was too muffled to make out the words, but the tone sent a shiver down my spine. It was a sound of pure desperation. Suddenly, the door handle began to jiggle violently. Someone was trying to get out. I stumbled back, my feet catching on a loose stone. I fell hard, the gravel digging into my palms. From inside, the whispering grew louder, more frantic, turning into a hoarse, pleading cry. It was a child's voice. "Help me!" it sobbed. "Please, let me out." Panic seized me, my mind raced. Was a child trapped in there? Was this some kind of kidnapping? I scrambled to my feet, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and terror. The $50 in my pocket felt like a lead weight. Was this a bribe for my silence? I fumbled for my phone, my fingers slick with sweat. I had to call the police. As I unlocked the screen, a message notification popped up. It was from the customer, through the delivery app. My blood ran cold as I read the words. "Thank you for the food. He gets so hungry. And please, don't believe anything he says. He's a very convincing liar." I looked from the phone to the rattling door, then back to the dark, imposing house. The single light above the front door flickered, then went out, plunging the entire property into absolute blackness. The child's cries from the basement turned into terrified screams. But now, another sound joined them. A deep, guttural laugh that seemed to come from the house itself, echoing through the night. It was a cold, cruel sound, full of malice. I didn't wait to find out who was laughing. I sprinted back to my car, the sound of the child's screams and that horrifying laughter chasing me. I didn't even bother to close the gate. I floored it, tires spinning on the gravel, and sped down Old Mill Road, not daring to look in my rearview mirror. I never delivered to that part of town again. I quit my job the next day. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I can still hear it. The scratching, the desperate, pleading whispers of a child, and that awful, soul-chilling laughter. I never found out what was in that basement, and I don't want to know. I delivered a cheeseburger, and I think, in doing so, I might have fed a monster. The $50 bill is still tucked away in a drawer. I can't bring myself to spend it. It feels like blood money. Every time I see it, I'm reminded of the basement on Old Mill Road and the voice that still haunts my nightmares.